Part of the Closing the Gap series, we're thinking about how we can close the gap in terms of our actions towards others. So how do our actions help other people close their gap? We need to think of a story in Matthew chapter 25 where Jesus is talking to these listeners, and he's telling them a little bit about the kingdom of heaven and what it's going to be like at the end times. And he talks to them in terms of a picture, in terms of a separation. Now, they were a very agricultural time back then, so they talked about like different animals. They talked about the sheep and the goats, and they would have known what was meant by that. They would have known the sheep were a clean animal that was used for sacrifice, but goats weren't. So you definitely didn't want to be a goat when Jesus was talking like this in Matthew 25. Let's read what it says. So in Matthew 25 verse 31 it says, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory and the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from each other, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left." So think at that time, you definitely wouldn't want to be a goat. "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me.'" Imagine that, a king saying to the people that he's separated, "When you saw me naked, when you saw me hungry, when you saw me in trouble, you helped me." Imagine a king needing that help from his subjects, from his people. You can imagine that the people who he was talking to were scratching their head thinking, "What are you on about? That never happened." He goes on, "Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?' The king will reply, 'Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me.'" Wow. Jesus is saying there, when you look out for the sick, the lost, the lonely, the hungry, the naked, those in prison unfairly, when you step in and act and help to close the gap on behalf of them, you're actually doing it for God, for the King. Just stop there and think. Your challenge this week is, when have you been able to do that in your last week? When have you been able to stand up for someone else who's needed help? Maybe it's the lonely and you've been a friend to them. Maybe it's the lost and you've helped to direct them. Maybe it is the hungry and you've been able to feed them, or the thirsty and you've been able to give them something to drink. So if you pray this prayer, "God, help me to see the needs of others so that I can meet them," I'm absolutely guaranteeing that God will answer that need that prayer in your life. You will start seeing the needs of other people and you'll have opportunities to answer it. That's a really brave and bold prayer to pray. Are you up for that challenge? So the challenge this week is, can you close the gap on behalf of other people? Can you live in a way that helps those who are less fortunate than you to make a difference in their world? Remember, as you do it to others, you're doing it to God. Thanks for listening. I hope you have loads of opportunities this week to be a blessing and a giver towards other people and helping them to close the gap. Thanks very much. See you again next week.